Hi, thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Bohannan with Father Joe's Villages, San Diego's oldest and largest homeless services provider within the region. Today I'm joined with Deacon Jim Vargas, President and CEO, and today we're going to discuss Pope Leo XIV and our work at Father Joe's Villages. So, Deacon Jim, thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's good. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah. What was your reaction when you learned about Pope Leo XIV and his new appointment?
I have to say my initial reaction was one of shock, right? That we would have an American Pope. Who would have thought? I would have never thought that in my lifetime at all. But that quickly turned to joy. I mean, to think that we would have an American Pope. And not only an American Pope, but one who has such a heart for the poor. And I think about what we do here at Father Joe's Villages, right? And Pope Leo is one who has worked with the marginalized, the stigmatized. In Peru especially, he spent a lot of his ministry in Peru, so much so, and he fell in love with the Peruvian people, that he's a naturalized Peruvian, right? And so to think that this cardinal from the United States had been chosen to lead the Universal Church, the Universal Catholic Church, is absolutely unbelievable, and I'm still excited.
So what do you know about this Pope? He's a first American Pope. What is his mission? What is his calling?
Sure, he's the first American Pope, absolutely. He comes from Chicago. He is an Augustinian after the charism of St. Augustine. And St. Augustine, there's a rule of St. Augustine, basically, that they follow. But one of the things that St. Augustine, he said many things, he was a doctor of the church, but one of the things that he would say is that our hearts are restless until they rest in the Lord. Right? And I love that. And I find in Pope Leo XIV, the former Cardinal Prevost, who I find that he has a heart that rests in the Lord. And I say that because I had the opportunity to meet him. And again, who would have thought? I was in Rome the end of February. This is the Jubilee year of hope, as designated by Pope Francis at the end of last year. And so during the Jubilee year, which happens every 25 years in the church, it's an opportunity especially to have a pilgrimage, especially to Rome. And so I was there with fellow deacons from around the world. And while Pope Francis wasn't able to be with us because he was hospitalized, it was Cardinal Prevost who actually addressed us. And who would have thought at the time, right? So because he is American, some of us gravitated to him after the session, and we got to chat with him a bit. I have a photo, in fact, with him. And so it's probably the closest I'll get to him now that he's Pope. But I found in just this short discourse that we had with him that this is a person who's reserved. I think he's reserved. Great sense of humor, and a man of peace and at peace. And that's where, when I think of St. Augustine and that saying of his, our hearts are restless unless they rest in the Lord, I found that very much in him.
So can you talk a little bit more about St. Augustine, serving those in need, serving others?
Well, the Augustinians in general, I mean, their charism is one of education. They're educators, but also serving the poor. And I think we find that in Pope Leo, who spent so much of his time, in fact, much of his ministry outside of the United States. When he was ordained, he served for a short period here in the United States, and then came back as provincial of the order for a few years. But his ministry has been the bulk of his ministry has been outside of the United States, and as I mentioned, in a place like Peru, and working amongst the destitute. Right? When I think of the work that we do here at Father Joe's Villages, that's why Pope Leo, I think, resonates so much with me, and I think with us, with our organization, because we're very much about working with the marginalized, working with the stigmatized, those who are on the street, the poorest of the poor, and being able to tap into their potential and reinstilling that hope. This year of hope, again, resonates again with us as well. Reinstilling hope with which people find they lose over time for various reasons. And then we tap into their potential, and we see how they rise up in their circumstances and be able to go forward into self-sufficiency with the resources that we provide for them. And so that's why Pope Leo resonates with me personally and the work that we do here.
So you mentioned hope a lot. What does hope mean to you?
Well, hope, I mean, if you look at Scripture and St. Paul in his letter to the Romans, and he wrote a number of letters. And his letter, one of the letters to the Romans, he says that hope does not disappoint. And I love that. And as you read further, hope does not disappoint because we have a God who loves us passionately, right? And that love should be, the way we should exemplify that love is by how we care for one another. And so that's where hope does not disappoint, that, there may be challenges, and not there may be, there will be challenges. We all have challenges in our lives, right? But that at the end of the day, we're able to overcome those challenges. Why? Because everything else may be in disarray, but we have a God who loves us, right? And as a result of that, he walks with us, and I feel that very much. He walks with us. I feel he walks with us here at Father Joe's Villages, right? This work that we do in order to be icons of him, right? So that people can feel not only the resources that we have for them, but that they can feel that they're loved, right? That we have compassion for them, right? That we want the very best for them, that they never lose their dignity. And why? Because the dignity that we have, each and every single human being, is the dignity that we get from our Creator, right? And so that's what hope is all about. Right, and that's why this year of hope, as designated by Pope Francis, I think was great. I'm delighted by it.
Do you feel like a lot of members of our community, those who are not experiencing homelessness, might be losing a little hope on the issue, on seeing homelessness not improve?
Oh, I think I've seen it, and I haven't, and understandably so. I think people look at the situation out there, and they wonder, this doesn't seem to be getting any better. I mean, here in San Diego, while the number of overall homeless has gone down, and that's a good thing year on year, just these past couple of years, the reality is that we have almost 10,000 individuals who are on the streets. That's a lot of people. And of that number of homeless in the county of San Diego, almost 60% of them are unsheltered. They have no level of shelter. And can you imagine, especially during the inclement weather, when it gets cold and windy and rainy outside, right? So there are people who are suffering. We have more seniors falling onto the streets, right? The baby boomers are aging out of the job market, and it's expensive to live here, right? And they've been hanging on by their fingernails, and now we're seeing them. They're coming across our threshold, and so they're falling into homelessness. So we need to. This is. So the public sees that, and when the public sees that, they wonder. In fact, I'm asked sometimes, I'm saying, Deacon, why don't you just throw up your arms? And why is it that you're not overwhelmed by this? And which always surprises me, because it's, I think about the lives that we impact on a daily basis, and it's one person at a time, and I see the miracles that happen. And some of them are heartbreaking, right? And it's not as if sometimes it's one step forward and a few steps back, right? But sticking with individuals and then just applauding them on their successes and helping them to achieve their self-sufficiency, it's what it's all about. So that's why I always point to the public. I think you have a good question there. They always point the public to this, right? So that when we talk about solving homelessness, we don't look at the whole. We look at the person. So it's solving homelessness for that individual at any given time, and then you add another individual, and the third, and the fourth, and that's how we solve homelessness.
So if there's a member of the public that wants to help solve homelessness with us, what would you encourage them to do?
Various things. As it relates to advocacy, as an example, making sure that they realize there's a role for them advocating, especially when legislation comes before the city council or before the county board of supervisors, making sure that their voice is heard, so that we have the level of resources and the attention that we need in order to be able to do our work. We have thrift stores out there throughout the city of San Diego, visiting those thrift stores, becoming patrons of those thrift stores. We have great merchandise at reduced rates, and in this economy, thrifting is very popular, right? And that's an important element. And all those proceeds go for the services and the programs at our village. And then, in order to stock those thrift stores, right, we send out about a dozen trucks on a daily basis, preset appointments. We gather up donations that are being given by generous individuals of household goods, boats or cars or whatever it is. And we sell these items either at our thrift stores or we auction them off. Again, the proceeds going for their services as well. People want to leave a legacy behind, right? Bequests are very important as well. So people who are generous in their lifetime to us and then want also to leave that legacy behind for after they've gone. And so there's volunteering. 6,000 volunteers we had last year. I love our volunteers, right? The services that they provided equates to almost $2.5 million. I couldn't have found that money in the budget, right? And so whether it's serving a meal or preparing a meal or being a mentor for our school-age students at the Therapeutic Child Care Center, or those who are clinicians, medical clinicians, health clinicians, who are now retired but want to continue to give back. There's our health center as well. I mean, that federally qualified health center that we have that has all medical disciplines and has behavioral health, right? Both on the psychiatric side and the substance use side, has our dental clinic as well. So there are so many ways in which people can get involved.
So Pope Leo XIV, is there significance to that name?
I think there is. I think when a cardinal gets elevated to the papacy, I think it's very telling the name that individual chooses. So Leo, the prior Leo, obviously was Leo XIII. And Leo XIII was in the late 1800s. And in 1891, an encyclical that he promulgated was Rerum Novarum. And that's the encyclical focused on social justice. And it was very significant. The church has always been for social justice, of course, but that really fine-tuned the church's position on especially how people should be treated. Specifically, in this case, in the workforce, that there should be just wages, that there should be a healthy relationship between labor and employers. Right, that hours of work, right? I mean, that people need a downtime, as an example. It can't just all be work, right? And in order to regenerate, in a sense. So it very much pointed to social justice, and especially as it related to the workforce, as an example. And so I think when you think of Leo XIV in choosing that name, what comes to my mind is that social justice is going to be prominently on his mind. And if you think about his background, as I mentioned before, if you think about, again, working with the poor, working with the marginalized and the stigmatized and so forth, and being out there for the poorest of the poor and lifting them up, again, I think that's very telling in the name that he chose.
And how does that social justice connect to your work at Father Joe's Villages?
We're all about social justice. I mean, if you think about the fact that we're working with those who a lot of times are destitute, right? Who have nothing else. I mean, a lot of times when people come to us, they come to us with nothing. They've lost everything for one reason or another. We have victims of domestic violence, right? We have children who come to us and are academically, emotionally, socially delayed because of their circumstances. And so through our Therapeutic Child Care Center, we're able to provide the resources that they need and the compassion and the love that's necessary in order for them to mitigate their circumstances and to break out of that. Because we know that the kids who come from homeless situations are 4 times more apt to be homeless as adults. So we have to break that cycle of homelessness, this generational cycle of homelessness. We need to break that, right? And so that's this is social justice is what it's all about. Social justice, seeing the common humanity that we have, right? That none of us is an island. That we're this God who made us, right? Who made us out of love in order to love, and it's that it's an extension, that we are an extension of him, and as a result we need to relate to one another in that common humanity and lift one another up.
What message would you have for people who may not see that common humanity, people in the general public who are housed, that see people experiencing homelessness as other?
Right. Well, I mean, first and foremost, what I would say is that the sign of a just and civilized society is one that takes care of its most vulnerable. I really do believe that, right? So if we are, think about our society, this society is quite wealthy, right? And by that I mean the United States and specifically San Diego as well. And so again, how are we going to take care of our most vulnerable? And when we take care of our most vulnerable, the community as a whole becomes healthier, right? So if for no other reason, that's why we should want to take care of those who are on the streets, right? So because as a whole, we become a healthier society. So I would say, think about how you can make a difference in the lives of individuals, and so be making a difference in your own life, right? Then that's what it's all about. I think the way we're made innately not to be about ourselves. Frankly, I really do believe that. I think innately we're made in order to make a difference in the lives of other people, the lives of your own family members, right? Your children, your grandchildren, what are your spouses, whatever that is. And then I think by extension in the lives of others, I think we feel more fulfilled when we extend ourselves to others. And sometimes that's a great sacrifice. I mean, that's the reality of it, right? Sometimes just putting yourself out in order to put yourself forward for someone else.
Are there any words of encouragement to people who want to get involved, but they haven't taken that first step yet?
So as far as getting involved is concerned, I would encourage people to do that. I would encourage people to come and join us, right? Come and join and help build a legacy here at not only at Father Joe's Villages, but in San Diego as a whole. It is, in the midst of the many challenges, especially now as what's overlaid the government, what we're hearing from the government, and all the different changes and executive orders and everything that's coming across. We still have a job to do here, day in and day out. We make a difference day in and day out. And those who have been benefactors of ours, an example, volunteers, those who have worked with us throughout the years, recognize that we are making a difference. That's the key, right? People want to be involved with an organization that makes a difference. And I can assure everyone who's out there that we are making a difference. And I see it day in, day out. I mean, I can point to the Davids of the world, or Amber, Michelle. There's so many people who stand up constantly and say, Father Joe's Villages saved my life, right? I am now who I am because of the assistance that Father Joe's Villages has given me over time. I get people who say to me, I was in and out of Father Joe's Villages over the years for many reasons, but I remember that you guys never turned me down. It didn't matter how many times I came back to you. You were always there extending a helping hand. So you always saw much more in me than I even saw in myself, right? And that's what we do. I mean, we tap into an individual's potential. It's there. And we reinstill that hope, and then we provide the resources necessary in order for them to become self-sufficient. So I would encourage people to come and join us in this work.
And to those out there who are still just really resistant to the idea that hope and help can be provided to people experiencing homelessness, that there isn't any hope, what would you say to them?
There's always hope. I mean, I really do believe that. Regardless of what it is, there is always hope. And we can't lose sight of that. And I realize frustration may be out there because of the circumstances and just what we see on the streets and so forth. But we must never lose sight of hope. I mean, that's first and foremost what we have to retain. Think about it. What is the alternative to losing hope? Doesn't sound good to me, right? It sounds very scary, actually. And so anyway, I would encourage people to come. Go onto our website, neighbor.org, right, and just see the work that we do there. We love to give tours. Come and have a tour with us, right? I think people who even know us, by the way, and maybe I've served meals for years and years, and they come and they take a tour, and they're flabbergasted. They can't believe the extent and the comprehensiveness of our programs because they've just served meals over the years, right? And so, to see that health center, as I mentioned, or the therapeutic childcare center, employment is so very, very important, right? So we have vocational training, and with vocational trainings come marketable skills, which leads to employment, and then income and self-sufficiency, right? So there's that aspect of it. I've always said, as you know, Josh, I've always said that what truly breaks the cycle of homelessness is a home. And so we're developers of affordable housing, right? I mean, we currently have 5 additional in the pipeline to add to the almost 1,000 units that we currently manage. And at the end of the day, that's what breaks the cycle of homelessness. And it's not just the 4 walls, but it's the programs and the comprehensiveness of the resources that help people retain housing long term, right? So yes, we provide shelter on a daily basis. That's necessary. In fact, the community doesn't have enough shelter beds. We know that because almost 60% of those who are homeless are unsheltered. So we need shelter, we need diversity in shelter, right? But that said, that's a temporary stopgap. It's really a home, housing, that breaks that cycle of homelessness.
So you mentioned that 60% of people who are experiencing homelessness in San Diego are unhoused. They're not in any form of shelter. Why is that?
Well, I think the economy, I know the economy is a big reason for that, right? It's very expensive to live here. If you think about the average rent for a studio apartment is over $2,000, right? That the rental vacancy is quite low here in San Diego. So our population isn't able to achieve that. And so that's the economy most definitely is one of the reasons why there's homelessness in general, I believe. And so if you think about that, what is important for us to do is to prevent people from falling onto the streets to begin with, to divert them from the shelter system. Because once they've fallen onto the streets, it becomes more costly to the community. And of course, it's graver for the individuals who are impacted by that situation. And so that's why we at Father Joe's Villages have been working more and more on keeping people housed, right? And encouraging the community actually to fund prevention programs so that we can, as an example, with a shallow subsidy of $500, we're finding that can keep individuals from falling onto the streets, right? And you may say to yourself, well, $500 a month, that's $6,000 a year. How long do you maintain that? The reality is that $6,000 is a drop in the bucket as it relates to how expensive it is to take care of a person once they've fallen onto the streets, right? So it is the smart thing to do is to keep them housed to begin with. And so that's something we've been advocating for more and more. I've been speaking to different entities and individuals as well in order to muster up financial resources to be able to keep people housed, right? Or divert them from the shelter system so that if it's helping them to make up a gap in the rent or to help with utilities, security deposits and the like, that type of thing, right? So that's an important element because the number one reason why people are on the streets is because of the economy.
There are those in the public who will say it's drugs and alcohol, right? Not the economy that's the driver for homelessness. What's your take on that?
Most assuredly, there are individuals who suffer from substance use challenges and mental health challenges. That is not the preponderance of the individuals who are out there, though it is a segment of that population, right? And it's one that has to be addressed. So when I mentioned that we need more shelter beds, we also need diversity in shelters. So we at Father Joe's Villages just the last year made the decision to repurpose one of our programs and be able to provide and deploy detoxification beds, right? And so we have, I'm happy to say that we finished construction and with God's help into His glory in another couple of months, we'll be opening up 44 beds of detox. And this is gonna be a godsend and a lifesaver for individuals who are out there and have substance use challenges. It has pained me over the years when I see people cycling in and out of shelter beds, our own and the shelter beds of other providers, and we're not getting to the fundamental problem, we as a community, and that's that they have substance use challenges. And so, and when people come to us and they say, you know what, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, I want off of drugs, we try to get them a shelter bed, a detox bed, and they can't be found. In the entire county of San Diego, there are only 78 such beds for our type of population, those who CalAIM population, right? Only, and 2 of which are in the city of San Diego, right? So we'll be deploying 44 beds to add to that 2 that exists currently, right? And it's a 14-day intensive inpatient program where they'll come in, right, and we'll provide the resources they need, the medical resources and so forth, in order to help them out of that through that detoxification period. And then we already have opened 248 recovery and sober living beds. So there'll be a nice progression from the detox center to the recovery beds, so that they continue with their behavioral health care, leading to case management, employment, right, and then housing and self-sufficiency, basically. So we're as excited as could be about that. And that's, again, that's what we do at Father Joe's Villages. We always have. We see the need, and it's an ever-changing need. It's not, not static, it's an ever-changing need. We see the need and we say, well, how do we step up to meet that need? And we're known for that, right? And so this is another case of that. This need there's been a gap in this need, and now we're filling this need. Of course, 44 beds. The community needs more than 44 beds, obviously, but this is a step in the right direction, and we hope that others will be doing the same.
Well, Deacon Jim, thank you for taking the time to talk to us, and appreciate all the work that you do in the community to advocate for those experiencing homelessness.
Well, it's my blessing, right? It's our blessing, and we can only do the work we do because of the help of the community at large, right? The benefactors, those who believe in us and have believed in us over the years. That's the revenue that we bring in, and I'll call it revenue, but the dollars that we bring in, they're primarily philanthropy dollars. I mean, that's just reality of the situation. The philanthropy is the lifeblood of this organization as far as being able to provide services and programs. And so I'm always encouraging people to come and join forces with us and make a difference. We make a difference each and every single day, and so I encourage people to join us in that endeavor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Father Joe's Villages has been a beacon of hope for our neighbors in need for 75 years. We are not only a movement, but a catalyst for change. If you'd like to learn more about our mission, please tune in to our Neighbors Helping Neighbors podcast from Father Joe's Villages, or visit neighbor.org to learn more. Thank you.